Imagine for a moment, right, that you decide to go 3 full days without food.
Oh, wow. Just completely fasting for 3 days.
Exactly. You are suffering through the hunger pains, you endure the headaches, the whole thing.
Sounds pretty miserable, honestly.
It is. But you push through, and you emerge entirely convinced that you have achieved, like, peak spiritual purity.
Right. You feel like you've really accomplished something massive.
Yeah, exactly. Only to find out that because you snapped at a waiter on day 2,
Oh, no.
yeah, you technically didn't fast at all.
Wow.
In fact, you completely missed the point. And that brings us to today's deep dive.
It's such a perfect example to start with.
Right. So, welcome in, everyone. We are looking at two really fascinating, highly influential, and honestly pretty philosophically dense texts today.
Very dense, yeah.
The first is a short excerpt, and it's titled The Discipline of the Heart.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is an analysis piece that looks at that exact concept called the internal fast, redefining spiritual discipline.
And the mission of this deep dive today is to really explore what I'd call a radical reframing of spiritual devotion.
Yeah, radical is definitely the right word for it.
Because these texts are asking you to do something incredibly difficult. They want to shift our focus entirely away from external rituals and put it squarely onto internal character.
Which is, it is a massive paradigm shift.
It really is. Because for centuries, across so many different cultural and historical traditions, devotion is usually codified into highly visible physical acts.
Right, things you can actually see someone doing.
Exactly. Abstaining from certain foods, wearing specific garments, performing routines at really precise times of day.
Yeah.
We are so conditioned to measure success, like even moral or spiritual success,
Right.
by those visible metrics.
Okay, let's unpack this, because as I was reading through these sources, I just kept thinking about human psychology and what I call the checklist mentality.
Oh, the checklist mentality. I love that phrasing.
Right, because the human brain loves a checklist. It gives us that little hit of dopamine.
A sense of completion?
Exactly. And because spirituality and morality are, inherently so abstract, it makes perfect sense that human beings naturally gravitate towards superficial rules.
Right, or physical ritual.
Yeah. Dietary restrictions are just the perfect example of
That's
this.
for sure.
Like, it is so much easier to check a box at the end of the day that says, hey, I didn't eat meat today.
Than it is to actually measure a legitimate change in your internal character.
Yes. It's measurable.
Yeah.
You can prove it to yourself, and maybe more importantly, you can prove it to anyone watching you.
Well, what's fascinating here is that the source material directly attacks that exact human tendency.
It really goes right after it.
It does. The texts open up by posing a series of really pointed questions about our whole framework for devotion.
Mhm.
They ask, like, what does it really mean to live in true godliness? Is it just about appearances?
Or about what we eat, or, what we don't eat.
Exactly. The author suggests that we have entirely confused the surface-level actions for the deeper substance.
Yeah.
We've been taught that a practice like fasting is primarily about what goes into the stomach. But the text argues that true godliness is found in what it calls the discipline of the heart.
The discipline of the heart.
Right. It's a complete redirection from the physical realm over to the psychological and emotional realm.
Okay, but let me push back on this just a little bit, though.
Sure, go ahead.
Because physical rituals, whether it's an intense religious fast or like a restrictive diet, or even just forcing yourself to go to the gym every morning at 5 a.m.
The 5 a.m. gym crowd.
Right, but those things build baseline discipline, don't they?
They do, yeah.
So if we completely abandon the physical ritual, just because it's supposedly external, don't we lose the actual scaffolding that helps us build internal character in the first place?
That's a really good question.
You have to learn how to deny your physical impulses before you can deny your emotional ones, right?
Yeah.
So is the author saying the ritual itself is just completely useless?
Well, that is a crucial distinction to make. The text actually doesn't explicitly demand the end of all physical rituals,
Okay.
nor does it say the scaffolding is completely useless.
Right, because that would be a little extreme.
What it does do, though, is expose the danger of basically moving into the scaffolding and calling it a house.
Oh, wow. Moving into the scaffolding and calling it a house.
Yeah, the analysis piece notes that the text shifts the focus because the physical abstention from food is just woefully insufficient on its own.
Mm-hmm.
To use an analogy here, think of a student who pulls an all-nighter to perfectly memorize a test's answer key.
Okay, I like where this is going.
They don't study the material, they just memorize the pattern like A, C, B, D, A.
Right.
They sit down, they take the test, they get 100%, and they follow the rules perfectly. But they learned absolutely nothing about the subject itself.
Right. They passed the test, but if they were asked to actually apply that knowledge out in the real world,
Yeah.
they would completely fail.
Exactly.
Because the ritual of taking the test was just a performance.
Yes, a hollow performance. The text is pointing out that we treat physical rituals exactly like that answer key.
Wow.
We memorize the outward behavior, we get the little gold star from our community, but our internal state remains entirely unchanged.
Yeah. And if the physical act alone can be that hollow, I mean, it makes total sense why the author logically transitions into redefining the whole concept of fasting entirely.
Right, shifting it away from the body.
Exactly. They move it completely out of the stomach and directly into the mind and our emotions.
Yeah.
And this brings up what I think is easily the most jarring image in the entire text.
Oh, you're talking about the paradox of the hungry but hateful person.
Yes. The hungry but hateful
It's
person.
such a striking concept. The source explicitly points out that you can avoid food all day long but still feed anger, pride, jealousy, and hate.
Yeah.
It notes that you can stay physically hungry yet still hurt people with your words.
And the brilliant irony of that metaphor is just, it's so good.
It really is.
The idea of feeding your negative emotions while you are literally starving your physical body.
Yeah, feeding the bad while starving the good.
It's the spiritual equivalent of like going on one of those incredibly strict, miserable green juice cleanses for your physical body.
Oh, I hate those things.
Right. But while you are restricting all these calories, you are simultaneously binge eating absolute junk food for your soul.
Exactly.
You are sitting there drinking kale, but you are screaming at the barista because your order took too long.
You are cleansing the vessel while deeply polluting the contents.
Oh, yes.
And if we actually look at the psychology behind why this happens, it makes perfect sense.
How so?
Well, willpower is often considered to be a finite resource in psychology.
Right. You only have so much of it for the day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you are pouring all of your cognitive energy into just ignoring physical hunger pangs, your defenses are lowered everywhere else.
Oh, that makes total sense. You become irritable.
Right, you snap at people. Through this lens, the analysis piece explains that true fasting has to become a comprehensive practice. It is no longer just about regulating your digestive system. It becomes about actively monitoring your thoughts, your speech, and your conduct.
To make sure they actually align with moral integrity.
Yes, especially when your willpower is depleted.
So it's basically taking the concept of a restrictive diet and applying it directly to your consciousness.
Exactly that.
Like you have to restrict your intake of jealousy.
Yes.
You have to cut back on your output of anger. And honestly, that requires significantly more effort than simply skipping a meal.
Oh, vastly more effort.
Because skipping a meal is ultimately a passive act of denial.
Right.
You just sit there and don't eat.
Right. You just do nothing.
But what the text is demanding is a highly active, constant state of psychological vigilance. You
Right.
have to watch what enters your mind and what leaves your mouth just as closely as what enters your stomach.
Which is an incredibly demanding state to maintain. I mean, nobody is perfect.
Right.
So to help visualize this, the source material breaks down what this new diet of the heart actually looks like in everyday practice.
Yeah, it gives us a really specific guide.
It provides a 4-part blueprint for everyday integrity. It states that true fasting is choosing patience when you could snap, kindness when you could judge, silence when you could gossip, and integrity when no one is watching.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, though.
Okay.
I want to zero in on silence when you could gossip and integrity when no one is watching.
Those are the tough ones.
They really are.
Okay.
Because if we look at the sociology of gossip, it's not just idle chatter. Gossip serves a very specific evolutionary function.
Right. It builds in-group cohesion.
Yes. When you share a secret with a coworker at the water cooler, you are trading social currency. You are actively bonding with that person.
You're building an alliance, basically.
Exactly. So when the text demands silence when you could gossip,
Yeah.
it is asking you to actively sacrifice a tangible social reward. Which brings up a fascinating philosophical point. Is true spiritual discipline actually defined by the things we don't do? Specifically, when we are handed the perfect, socially rewarding, consequence-free opportunity to do them.
That's spot on, because when you gossip, you are usually in a safe space with a confidant, right? The
Yeah.
person you're talking about isn't there, so there is no immediate negative consequence for you.
Zero risk.
Exactly. And similarly, when no one is watching, the threat of social punishment or reputation damage is entirely removed.
Right.
The text really challenges readers to transform their lives precisely in those invisible moments. Because, let's be honest, it is easy to be kind when your boss is watching,
Right, of course.
or to be patient when you are trying to impress someone on a first date. But the real test of the discipline of the heart is what you do when the audience is completely gone.
Right, because fasting from food is highly visible. People see you declining the office donuts.
Oh, yeah, and they always ask why.
They ask why, you tell them, and boom, you get a tiny hit of social validation. Oh, wow, you're so disciplined.
Exactly.
But fasting from gossip or fasting from a private judgment, nobody sees that.
Yeah.
You are effectively fasting from the attention and the validation itself.
And notice how the author phrases the blueprint. They say, choosing patience when you could snap.
Right.
It explicitly acknowledges the impulse.
That's a great point. It doesn't pretend you're a robot.
Exactly. The impulse to snap or to judge or to gossip, those are incredibly natural, deeply wired human reactions.
Yeah.
The discipline isn't about pretending those impulses don't exist or just suppressing them until they explode. It is about the friction between the impulse and the action.
The friction.
Yes. If we think of moral character as a muscle, that friction is the actual weightlifting. True fasting is the conscious decision to interrupt that automatic response. You feel the impulse to snap, you acknowledge it, and in that split second, you consciously override your nervous system to choose patience instead.
And overriding your nervous system in real time is just, it's so much harder than simply distracting yourself from a grumbling stomach.
Oh, absolutely.
Which brings up a very practical problem. To successfully sustain these incredibly difficult minute-by-minute choices, holding back a snap, swallowing gossip, acting with integrity in a totally empty room.
You need immense motivation.
Yes. If there is no audience, and there's no social gold star at the end of the day, what is actually driving the behavior? Why would anyone subject themselves to that level of constant internal friction?
Well, the conversation in the text shifts directly to this exact question of motivation.
Okay.
And what it provides is a total rebranding of a very old concept, specifically what it means to be God-fearing.
Oh, it's a loaded term.
It really is. Traditionally, the term God-fearing carries a lot of historical and cultural baggage.
Definitely.
It usually evokes the idea of a highly punitive authority figure.
Yeah.
It implies a motivation based almost entirely on the terror of divine punishment. You follow the rules, you perform the rituals, strictly because you are afraid of the consequences if you don't.
The ultimate fear-based compliance.
Exactly.
It's like a child not stealing a cookie only because they think their parent is standing right behind them with a wooden spoon.
Yes.
The child hasn't actually learned that stealing is intrinsically wrong. They just don't want to get hit with the spoon. So the second the parent leaves the room, they are taking the cookie.
That is a perfect analogy, and the source material completely upends this old. God-fearing isn't about being afraid.
Wow. What
Instead, it defines it as a state of heightened awareness.
Heightened awareness.
Right. It is being acutely aware that every thought, every word, every action matters.
So what does this all mean? Because if we look at this through a modern psychological lens, the text's definition of heightened awareness sounds essentially like the ultimate form of mindfulness.
It really does, doesn't it?
Yeah. It is living so intentionally that you realize the heavy weight of even your smallest daily interactions.
Yeah.
It completely changes the underlying mechanism of devotion.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, shifting the definition from a fear of punishment over to a profound awareness of our impact, the text fundamentally changes the nature of devotion from a selfish act to a selfless one.
A selfless act.
Yeah.
Let's dig into that.
Well, if you are only acting good because you are afraid of being punished, like the child avoiding the wooden spoon, your motivation is ultimately selfish.
Right. You are just trying to save yourself.
Exactly. You are negotiating your own personal safety. But if you are acting good because you have a heightened awareness of how your words and actions physically and emotionally impact the people around you, then your devotion becomes entirely selfless. It becomes about protecting others from your own negative impulses.
That distinction is incredibly profound.
Yeah.
And the analysis piece backs this up, right? It suggests being God-fearing is a state of heightened awareness, specifically regarding how we treat others.
Yes, that's the core of it.
It's not about how we negotiate our VIP pass to the afterlife or ensure we don't get struck by lightning. It's about recognizing the ripple effect of our behavior in the here and now.
A ripple effect. Exactly.
Like if I let my willpower drop during a physical fast and I snap at you, I ruin your morning.
Yep.
Then you carry that negative energy to work.
Yeah.
You snap at your coworker, and the damage just spreads. This text is saying that a truly principled person understands the gravity of their own ripples.
Which is exactly why the internal fast is presented as so crucial.
Right.
Because if your devotion is only about physical abstention, you can still create terrible ripples. You can be hungry and still be highly destructive to your community.
Yeah.
But if your devotion is this heightened awareness, every single interaction becomes sacred. Every conversation is a test of your discipline. You cannot compartmentalize your morality anymore.
It really circles back to the checklist mentality we talked about at the beginning, doesn't it?
It does.
Because the checklist is inherently selfish. I did my ritual, I didn't eat meat today, therefore I am safe.
Exactly.
But the discipline of the heart is deeply relational. I am managing my internal world so that I do not cause harm in the external world.
And that leaves absolutely no room for excuses. You cannot say, well, I am fasting from food today. I am doing something incredibly difficult for God, so I have earned the right to be a little bit irritable with my family.
Oh, I've absolutely seen people do that.
Oh, we all have.
The hangry defense.
Yeah.
I'm irritable, but it's not my fault. It's a spiritual sacrifice.
Right, right.
And this text is essentially saying, no, your irritability just completely negated your physical sacrifice.
Yep.
If you were irritable and cruel to the people around you, you broke the real fast. Because the real fast was never about the food on your plate. It was about the disposition of your heart.
As the text summarizes, true fasting is the discipline of the heart. The physical abstention is totally meaningless if it isn't paired with a radical transformation of how you actually treat other human beings.
So as we wrap up today's deep dive, I want to bring you, the listener, back to the ultimate summarizing question that the text poses to its readers.
It's a great question.
It asks directly, are we just fasting with our bodies, or are we fasting with our lives? It really forces you to look in the mirror and evaluate your own metrics for goodness.
It really does.
The core takeaway across both of these pieces is unmistakable. True devotion, true godliness, true principle, whatever framework you personally want to use, is measured entirely by internal character and how we treat others.
Right.
It is not measured by how well we perform superficial rules or how perfectly we memorize the answer key to a moral test.
It is a profound shift from the optical to the optimal human experience.
I love that phrase.
And looking at the broader implications of these sources, it leaves us with a really lingering question for everyone to mull over.
Let's hear it.
If true fasting is redefined as this heightened awareness, this constant active abstinence from negative thoughts, gossip, anger, and cruelty, what actually happens when a formal religious fasting period is over?
Oh, wow.
Because with a physical fast, the sun goes down or the calendar turns and you break the fast, you eat the food.
Yeah.
But if we are fasting with our lives rather than just our bodies, does a true fast ever actually have a breaking point? You don't get to reach sundown and suddenly decide it's acceptable to start gorging on gossip and hate again.
No, you don't.
This text fundamentally demands that this level of moral discipline, this internal fast, become our permanent, everyday state of being.
You don't get a cheat day for cruelty.
Exactly.
That is an incredible thought to end on. If changing your character doesn't have a progress bar, it also doesn't have a finish line. You can't just memorize the answer key and walk away. You actually have to live the material every single day in every interaction. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time. Imagine for a moment